sources, this so-called glam mom, the wealthy mom had, quote, whiskey-fueled with her husband and then murdered him the same night after she reveals to him her affair with another man.
Detectives say her husband, Matthew Johnson, was killed.
Hi everyone, my name is Anderson and today we're diving into another tragic and deeply unsettling true crime case. This is a story that, according to investigators and court filings, began with the image of a picture-perfect family, but slowly unraveled into one of Utah's most disturbing murder allegations in recent years. It's a case filled with conflicting narratives, a deteriorating marriage, accusations of manipulation, and a disappearance that has left countless people heartbroken and searching for answers. Jennifer Gladhill and Matthew Johnson appeared, at least from the outside, to have built an enviable life. Living in an upscale $1 million home in Cottonwood Heights, Utah, they were known as a quiet, stable family. Neighbors saw a devoted military husband, a stay-at-home mother, and 3 children, aged 11, 7, and 5, who seemed to have the kind of childhood many aspire to provide. But as court documents later revealed, this outward normalcy was masking years of escalating marital conflict. Matthew, 51, served for more than a decade with the Utah National Guard's 19th Special Forces Group. His colleagues described him through public statements reported in news coverage as intelligent, level-headed, and someone whose calm, dependable nature made him invaluable in high-stress environments. Jennifer, 42, was portrayed by many of Matthew's friends as a quiet, home-oriented mother, someone who seemed friendly and reserved. But prosecutors later stated in court that the relationship had been deteriorating long before the tragic events of 20. According to divorce discussions mentioned in legal filings, the couple had been considering separation since at least July of that year. Friends of Matthew later told investigators that by the summer, tensions had grown significantly. In August 2024, Jennifer filed for a temporary protective order against her husband. In those filings, she claimed she feared for her safety. However, when the matter reached the court, Commissioner Russell Minus reviewed the evidence, including videos provided by Jennifer, and ruled that the footage did not support her claims. According to the court's decision, the videos showed Jennifer as unafraid and equally confrontational, and the commissioner noted that her text messages to Matthew frequently appeared hostile, degrading, and provoking. On September 16, 2024, the protective order was dismissed. The commissioner concluded that what he observed was not evidence of abuse, but rather a marriage that had become severely dysfunctional. His written statement, now widely cited in news reports, suggested that a divorce should have been initiated long before the relationship reached such a volatile state. What he could not have known, investigators later alleged, was that events already in motion would lead to something far more devastating than separation. Friends later told investigators that Matthew had grown increasingly concerned about Jennifer's behavior in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. Some of his military colleagues stated that he spent nights away from home, sleeping at a National Guard facility for his own safety, according to police reports. During one of his final conversations, as relayed by close friend Kevin Thompson, Matthew admitted that he finally accepted the marriage was over and felt it was time to move forward with a divorce. But according to the allegations presented by prosecutors, Matthew never had the chance to follow through. Investigators later stated that Jennifer had been engaged in an affair they believe became central to the tragic chain of events that followed. This relationship, investigators allege, was not a fleeting one. According to the lovers' recorded statements, it had become intense, emotional, and all-consuming. Just 2 days before the alleged murder, Jennifer reportedly showed this man a Glock 19X handgun. At the time, he didn't consider it alarming. Many Utah households, especially those with military ties, legally own firearms. But prosecutors would later argue that this moment was part of a deliberate plan. According to charging documents, Jennifer had arranged for her 3 children to stay at her parents' house on the night Matthew would later be reported missing. Investigators believe this was intentional and part of preparations for what they allege she was already planning. As September 20, 2024 began, it seemed to the outside world like any ordinary day. But that evening, events within the Johnson-Gladhill home, as reconstructed by investigators, marked the turning point in this tragic story. According to prosecutors and statements later given to investigators, the tension inside the home the night of September 20th rose sharply when Matthew confronted Jennifer about the alleged affair. Witnesses reported hearing raised voices, and in Jennifer's later statements to police, she acknowledged that the conversation became heated. She claimed Matthew yelled at her after discovering she had been involved with someone else. For investigators, this moment marked the culmination of months of marital strain and emotional volatility. What happened next, according to prosecutors, shifted this case from a troubled marriage into a homicide investigation. During the early hours of September 21st, while Matthew slept in the master bedroom, investigators alleged that Jennifer retrieved a 9mm handgun belonging to Matthew. According to her recorded confession to her lover, she shot Matthew in the head as he lay asleep. Prosecutors say the act was carried out swiftly, with no signs of struggle. Investigators later outlined a sequence of events that they allege unfolded immediately afterward. According to their reconstruction, Jennifer placed Matthew's body into a rooftop-style storage container used for vehicle travel. Using this container, she allegedly slid his body down the stairs before loading it into the back of the family minivan. Prosecutors stated in court that Jennifer smashed Matthew's cell phone to prevent tracking and then drove his truck to a nearby neighborhood, abandoning it several blocks from their home to create the illusion that he had left voluntarily. From there, investigators say she drove north with Matthew's remains. Based on her later description to her lover, she buried him in a shallow grave somewhere in northern Utah, though the exact site remains unknown. This burial location has been the subject of extensive search efforts that continue months after the alleged crime. According to police reports, once Jennifer returned home, she engaged in what investigators describe as an extensive cleanup operation. She allegedly used bleach, carpet cleaning solutions, and other chemicals throughout the master bedroom to remove blood evidence. Court documents state that she ordered a replacement mattress on September 24th, just 3 days after the alleged shooting. The mattress was delivered on September 26th, which investigators later viewed as a key indicator of attempted concealment. But perhaps the most pivotal development came not from physical evidence, but from Jennifer's own words. Prosecutors have stated that after the alleged crime, Jennifer went to her lover's home late on the night of September 22nd. According to him, she appeared with bruises, injuries she claimed were from burying her husband and scrubbing the house. Disturbed by what he heard, he later recorded a follow-up conversation with her. These recordings have become central pieces of evidence in the case. In one of these recorded calls, the man told Jennifer he was frightened by what she had confessed. Her response, as quoted in charging documents, was chilling. "Wow. If you think I could even hurt a fly. Like, he's not a person. He wasn't a person anymore. He wasn't Matt." Prosecutors argue that this statement reflects a disturbing detachment and a level of dehumanization that deeply troubled investigators. When the man asked how she would feel if the situation had been reversed, court documents report that Jennifer replied, "Not if I deserved it." She then reportedly made unsettling remarks about violence, referencing the Queen of Hearts and describing her own past statements about off with their heads and removing scum from society. According to investigators, these statements helped establish a mindset that would become significant in court. Jennifer also pleaded with him not to think of her as a monster and to remember who she had been before confessing. But by this point, prosecutors say the man realized the severity of what he had been told. He began saving text messages, recording conversations, and collecting anything that could corroborate what she had admitted. What made the recordings even more consequential was that they occurred before Matthew had been officially reported missing. To investigators, this indicated that Jennifer was speaking openly of Matthew in the past tense, despite the fact that no one outside the alleged crime knew he was dead. 6 days after her confession, Jennifer finally contacted police, reporting Matthew missing and claiming he had said he would be gone for a week and did not want to be contacted. However, the Utah National Guard had already begun searching for him after he failed to show up for duty on September 23rd. This discrepancy became yet another red flag for investigators. The turning point in the investigation came on October 2nd, 2024, when Jennifer's lover contacted police. According to police reports, he turned over screenshots, recorded phone calls, and detailed statements about what Jennifer had allegedly told him. Investigators described his information as the key that unraveled the entire case. Police quickly obtained a search warrant for the Johnson-Gladhill residence. What they found, prosecutors later said in court, painted a starkly different picture from the missing person narrative Jennifer had given. Under the master bed, investigators discovered a large, circular stain consistent with blood saturation. They also found reddish-brown spots on the walls, blinds, and bed frame slats. The smell of bleach lingered throughout the room, and the mattress was unmistakably new. These discoveries, paired with the recorded confessions and digital location data, formed the foundation of the murder and obstruction charges that followed. When investigators executed the search warrant on September 28th, the evidence inside the home deepened their suspicions and strengthened the timeline they believed had unfolded. According to investigators' reports and court testimony, the master bedroom was the focal point of the scene. The large dark stain beneath the bed appeared to be consistent with blood seepage. Reddish-brown spots were detected on the walls, blinds, and slats supporting the mattress. The strong odor of bleach, something officers described as overwhelming, suggested that significant efforts had been made to sanitize the room. Prosecutors later stated that these findings aligned closely with what Jennifer had allegedly described to her lover during her confession. The new mattress, ordered just days after the alleged shooting, became a critical piece of the timeline. Investigators confirmed through phone records that Jennifer placed the order on September 24th and it was delivered on September 26th. To prosecutors, this rapid replacement looked deliberate and directly connected to an attempted cover-up. But the digital evidence uncovered during the investigation would prove just as important. Data from Jennifer's phone, as outlined in charging documents, tracked her movements across key times and locations. On the morning of September 21st, GPS records showed her traveling to a neighborhood where Matthew's truck was later found abandoned. This movement matched her alleged account of attempting to stage Matthew's disappearance by making it seem like he had left on his own. Later that same day, her phone data reflected a northbound journey toward Davis County, a direction investigators believe she took while transporting Matthew's body. This trip aligned with the region Jennifer reportedly described to her lover as the burial area. Even though the precise location remained unclear, the general route matched the broader search zones authorities have since focused on. As news of Matthew Johnson's disappearance spread, concern grew not only among law enforcement but also within the Utah National Guard community. Colleagues who had served with him for years expressed alarm when he missed required check-ins. According to public statements made by the Guard, Matthew was considered highly dependable, making his absence especially troubling. His failure to report for duty on September 23rd triggered internal alerts and added urgency to the search. At this point, according to investigators, Jennifer continued to maintain the story that Matthew had left voluntarily, telling police he had said he would be gone for a week. But behind the scenes, her lover, now deeply unsettled by what she had confessed, was gathering every piece of information he could. Ultimately, his decision to go to law enforcement on October 2nd changed everything. Once police received the recorded conversations, screenshots, and detailed account of Jennifer's alleged confession, they began piecing together a wider scope of potential involvement. According to investigators, the information pointed not only to Jennifer but also raised questions about the possible actions of her parents, Thomas and Rosalie Gladhill. On October 24, 2024, Jennifer's parents were arrested and charged with multiple counts of obstruction of justice. Prosecutors allege that in the days following the incident, the couple spent far more time inside Jennifer's home than they initially told police. Investigators obtained surveillance footage showing them at the residence for more than 5 hours, even though they had first claimed they were simply picking up clothing and stayed less than an hour. This discrepancy raised immediate red flags. During interviews, Thomas reportedly told officers, "I did not go in where the incident happened," a statement prosecutors later highlighted as significant because police had not yet disclosed the precise location of the suspected crime scene. This, they argued, suggested knowledge of details the parents should not have known unless they had been inside the room. Meanwhile, investigators discovered that Rosalie had remotely reset her phone during the time period when the cleanup was believed to have occurred, wiping data that could have shown her movements. According to charging documents, officers concluded that this action was not accidental, but rather an attempt to destroy potential evidence. During a search of the Gladhill parents' home, police uncovered a plastic tote containing a Glock 19 Xbox wrapped in a child's onesie. This box, according to prosecutors, matched the description of the firearm Jennifer had shown to her lover on September 19th. Investigators said the discovery strongly supported the timeline that Jennifer had accessed Matthew's gun and used it in the alleged crime. As the investigation expanded, so did the search for Matthew's body. According to official statements, teams of more than 70 individuals, including detectives, trained searchers, and Matthew's fellow soldiers, combed through vast stretches of northern Utah. The search area grew to include parts of Davis, Weber, and Box Elder counties, stretching close to the Utah-Idaho border. Despite months of work, no remains were located. Prosecutors later revealed that a vehicle storage container was found floating in water with Matthew's blood inside. They believe this container may have been the one used to move his body. The discovery added another layer of physical evidence connecting Jennifer to the alleged events. Friends of Matthew, including fellow Green Berets, expressed their deep frustration and emotional exhaustion as the months wore on. One longtime friend stated that the ongoing uncertainty kept them awake at night, while another said that having welcomed Jennifer into their home made the allegations almost impossible to comprehend. As each new detail emerged in court filings, the sense of betrayal and disbelief among those who cared about Matthew only intensified. As the case moved closer to a preliminary hearing, prosecutors began presenting a deeper look into Jennifer's alleged digital behavior in the days before and after Matthew was last seen. According to court filings, her phone showed repeated searches for cleaning supplies, heavy-duty carpet products, and various disposal methods. Investigators stated that while none of these searches directly proved guilt, the timing and subject matter raised concern when viewed alongside the physical scene discovered in the home. Phone extraction data also revealed that Jennifer had exchanged numerous messages with her parents during the days following the alleged incident. Prosecutors claim these conversations appeared to revolve around coordinating visits, moving items, and discussing what investigators believe were efforts to clean or reorganize the interior of the home. Although the exact content of the deleted or missing messages could not be fully recovered, timestamps and metadata offered a rough outline of communication patterns authorities found suspicious. During court proceedings, detectives testified that one message thread between Jennifer and her parents was wiped from her device just before police conducted their first welfare check at the home. According to investigators, this deletion suggested a deliberate attempt to remove information related to the timeline. Defense attorneys, however, argued that message deletions occur for many reasons and should not be interpreted as evidence of wrongdoing. They emphasized that none of the text messages contained explicit admissions or directions related to Matthew's disappearance. The alleged confession that Jennifer gave to her lover remained one of the central pillars of the prosecution's case. In their filings, prosecutors described the statements as detailed, voluntary, and consistent with the physical evidence. Defense attorneys countered by arguing that the lover had a motive to exaggerate or misinterpret her words, pointing to the emotional tension and secrecy surrounding their relationship. They insisted the statements were unreliable and should not be weighed heavily without corroboration. Inside the courtroom, the recordings of these conversations, parts of which were captured in screenshots and voice memos, were played for the judge. According to media reports summarized in court documents, Jennifer could be heard using phrases such as cleaning it up and taking care of things, though her defense argued these snippets were taken out of context. Prosecutors maintained the meaning was unmistakable, especially when paired with the large bloodstain, the mattress replacement, and the abandoned truck. The truck itself became a major point of scrutiny. Investigators testified that Matthew's vehicle had been left in a neighborhood with no known ties to him. GPS data from Jennifer's phone placed her near the area early on September 21st, shortly before the truck was discovered. To prosecutors, this was consistent with their theory that she was staging a disappearance. Defense attorneys argued that GPS location data has a radius of error and could not conclusively place her at the exact spot where the truck was left. Meanwhile, the public search for Matthew grew into one of the largest missing person operations the region had seen in years. Local volunteers, friends from the National Guard, and specialized teams roamed through rugged foothills, ravines, and remote stretches of land. According to official statements, many searchers completed 12-hour days, driven by the hope that Matthew could still be found, or that at least some trace might help investigators narrow the search zone. Members of Matthew's family spoke publicly during this period, expressing anguish and pleading for anyone with information to step forward. Prosecutors later emphasized that the family's cooperation had been consistent and open from the start, while also stating that investigators had uncovered no evidence suggesting Matthew left voluntarily. They pointed to his close relationships, medical needs, and steady military responsibilities as indicators that he would not simply walk away from his life. In mid-January, additional evidence began to surface in court filings, including details about blood found in Jennifer's vehicle. According to the documents, a small sample recovered from the car was identified as Matthew's through DNA analysis. Prosecutors argued this supported their theory that Jennifer transported Matthew's body after the alleged shooting. Defense attorneys countered that cross-contamination was possible, noting that Matthew lived in the home, used the vehicle on occasion, and could have left biological traces earlier. The storage container discovered floating in water, referenced in investigative reports, added another layer of complexity. Although prosecutors publicly stated that Matthew's blood was found inside the container, they did not claim it was definitive proof of body transport, only that it fit within the overall narrative they believed occurred. Defense attorneys again challenged the interpretation, insisting that without Matthew's remains, the prosecution's case relied heavily on speculation and circumstantial evidence. Meanwhile, the charges against Jennifer's parents intensified public interest. Prosecutors alleged that the couple had helped clean the home, moved items, and possibly assisted in the concealment of evidence. Defense attorneys responded strongly, stating that the parents were simply helping their daughter with household tasks during a stressful period and had no knowledge of any alleged crime. They described the prosecution's theory as overreaching, arguing that the evidence was too thin to support felony obstruction charges. In the weeks following the parents' arrest, the narrative surrounding the case became a point of tension between prosecutors and defense teams. Prosecutors insisted they were piecing together a deliberate effort by multiple individuals to hide Matthew's fate. Defense teams accused the state of building a storyline based on assumptions fueled by emotion rather than fact. With each new hearing, the divide grew sharper, setting the stage for a long and complicated legal fight. By early February, the public had begun to follow the case closely, with court hearings drawing large crowds and frequent media coverage. Reporters, relying on public filings and courtroom discussions, highlighted the unusual complexity of the investigation: a missing husband, a wife accused of an elaborate cover-up, and two parents facing serious felony charges, all without the discovery of the victim's body. According to legal analysts quoted in filings, cases without recovered remains are difficult but not impossible to prosecute, often depending heavily on forensic evidence and statements made by the accused. Despite the uncertainty, investigators remained committed to continuing their search efforts. In official updates, law enforcement repeatedly emphasized that locating Matthew was their top priority, both for evidentiary purposes and to provide closure for his family. Day by day, teams continued to search remote areas, evaluate new tips, and reanalyze previously collected data. As the investigation moved into early spring, prosecutors described their work as steady and far from complete. Detectives continued refining digital timelines, reviewing GPS data, and searching remote areas where they believed Matthew could be found. Despite months of effort and expanded search zones, law enforcement emphasized that they had no plans to slow down until answers were uncovered. Friends and fellow service members grew increasingly vocal, sharing statements in court filings about Matthew's dedication and reliability. Many joined volunteer searches, saying they could not rest until they knew what happened. Their involvement, prosecutors noted, illustrated how deeply Matthew was valued within his community. Defense attorneys pushed back harder as the case advanced. They argued that the state was relying too heavily on circumstantial details: the mattress purchase, the blood stain, the deleted messages, and the alleged confession to Jennifer's lover. They claimed there was no definitive proof of a homicide, no recovered body, no murder weapon, and no direct eyewitness. Prosecutors countered that the totality of evidence created a clear and consistent picture. Legal analysts watching the hearings remarked that nobody cases often hinge on subtle but meaningful inconsistencies. Prosecutors insisted the inconsistencies all pointed toward deliberate concealment. Defense teams maintained they were being interpreted unfairly. As courtroom crowds grew, public opinion remained divided. Many expressed support for Matthew's family, while others urged caution until a full trial. Meanwhile, Matthew's loved ones organized events, shared memories, and worked to keep his story alive. Though the case has developed significantly, it remains unresolved. Prosecutors believe the evidence forms a coherent narrative of intentional wrongdoing. Defense attorneys argue the state has built a theory on assumptions. And with Matthew still missing, the search continues, leaving the final truth still undiscovered.